What's up, YouTube? Thanks for checking out the video. Hugely appreciate it. It means a lot. I just wanted to talk about the state of standard currently. A little bit of a different type of video, but they didn't ban anything, as many of you probably know. I just want to talk about my frustrations with that decision and my experience as a Magic player over the last 6 or 7 years. I sort of got into it like 2019, 2020, like COVID time is when I actually hit Mythic for the first time. And I have some cards here on the right side that sort of got me there. And I want to contrast, compare, and I'm going to try to be brief to respect your time. But there's two cards in particular. The first on the list that I want to talk about first, and then I'll sort of get into that. So hopefully you find this interesting. But Monstrous Rage here is a really good pump spell, as we all know, and in combination with things like Heartfire Hero, Cacophony Scamp, Manifold Mouse, all of those, Slick Shot, right? This is just overwhelming, right? It sort of invalidates blockers early. And it also leaves a permanent on the field in the form of that Aura Roll, which is relevant for some sort of off-meta type beats. This is just a little too good, right? It should probably just be a +1. And then, if they want to keep the permanent part with the trample, that makes sense. But what you're getting is 6 power, +1 toughness, trample for 1 mana. It's not overwhelming in a vacuum, but with all of the other options that we have, it certainly constrains the meta a lot, right? Like, there's already Monastery Swiftspear. Again, Slick Shot has the pump effect. Manifold Mouse gets a counter every time you target it. All of these creatures are so synergistic with this. And what you have is you have a meta that's so fast-paced and so sort of like you sort of have to have an answer for that, or you're going to die on turn 3 or 4. We also have Screaming Nemesis as a very premier creature. And this video will also sort of be about power creep in general. This is just a great card. Demands a blocker, but if you do block, then you're going to lose a creature or take 3 to the face. And this often, with that haste, is swinging in for a free turn, and then later you have to deal with it. And yeah, removal is a thing. We have plenty of removal options, but I'll come back to these cards in a second. Now, in tandem with them, you have up the Beanstalk, and I actually made a few shorts a while back talking about my hatred for this card and how it's probably the best card in Standard currently, for sure, by a country mile. Especially when you have things like This Town Ain't Big Enough, and you have just these overlords that you can cast for their impending costs that also trigger up the Beanstalk for some godforsaken reason. This card also in a vacuum is a little bit more manageable, but it's just a little too good at the moment. And in tandem with the red spells I've just been discussing, you have to have an answer for grinding out mid to late game value and trying to outpace something like Up to Beanstalk, while also having a early interaction and a removal suite for the red creatures. And even if you remove the red creatures, like Manifold Mouse and Cacophony Scamp, you're going to take a huge amount of damage. And then maybe you do that and then just slap down Nemesis, right? So you have a conflicting paradigm here. Maybe that's the wrong word, but to have answers for both of these, even in best of 3 when you have sideboard options, is very hard to do. It's very constraining, right? And this is the first time I've really taken a break from Magic the Gathering due to this unfortunate circumstance. Now, the thing about Up the Beanstalk, some of you might be like, oh, it's not that busted, as people said in my shorts. Yeah, it is, because it replaces itself right away. And if they even draw 1 extra card off of it, that's incredible value. And they're going to draw 4, 5, 6 cards off of this if 1 goes uncontested. So say they lay this turn 2, then you lay something like a typical, I actually have Banishing Light here in Classic, right? You're paying more mana to remove a 2-drop enchantment that, yeah, doesn't necessarily establish board presence, but you're trading a loss in mana value and also your turn 3, and they've already replaced the card, right? So I think that is, you can get lost it, but they still get 2 tokens out of it, map tokens, and then, yeah, they've already replaced the card. That's the problem. It should not draw a card when it enters the battlefield to have, to force them to have some sort of earlier game options as well, other than just this into Overlord of the Hauntwoods, right? Now, I also want to talk about, I guess, Unholy Annex, because this card is like really, really good, and this sort of transitions the discussion more into power creep, and then I'll show you the deck that I first hit Mythic with. But this card is so good because it's just a draw engine. It's also a win con with the they lose 2 life once you get a demon. And not only that, it's a second card attached to the first card that also conveniently makes a demon. It's also a 5/5 6/6 demon. It also reminds me of something like Doom Whisperer from back in the day. This used to be crazy, not incredibly crazy, but you can see that the power creep here, this is just a better card in almost every aspect. Yes, this has trample. Yes, the Surveil 2 is kind of real for certain decks, and just it's so classic looking at Doom Whisperer here. But just think about the power creep as I go forward here, and again, I'm not trying to be too long-winded. Then you have things like Aclazotz, which is a smaller power and toughness by far, but also sort of actually helps you win the game more realistically, especially in the fast pace of Standard, if you're not against a Beanstalk deck. But even if you are, they're getting Leyline Binding, etc. So this is very good. You also have Unstoppable Slasher. Now, this is a 1-2 punch that I think is crazy, the likes of which I personally haven't seen. Now, some of you that have been playing longer than me, I understand that there's probably things that I'm missing in the past that have been even more broken. But the fact that, like, Slasher, if you happen to have no removal, and they, maybe this is more like a turn 4/5 thing, because maybe they have to cast this and then hold up a cut down to get rid of one of your blockers. But if this connects, you're just dead. And that's a little insane. I think that these being in Standard at the same time are a little insane. It's definitely not anywhere near Monstrous Rage or anywhere near up the Beanstalk. But I just wanted to point that out as I talk about my favorite deck. Probably. Not really. So back in Theros, also Eldraine, we had cute little things like Pios Wayfarer. This looks horrible to the average Magic player, because it's really not great at all by today's standards. But this was actually a huge enabler for one of the first decks when I really hit Mythic and I really was grinding the game. You basically just got a free pump every time you cast a cheap enchantment. Things like Sentinel's Eyes were really, really good, because this will give vigilance. It'll trigger the, what they call this, constellation, right? The I guess keyword, sub keyword, whatever. And you can also escape it from the bin. So that was pretty good. You had things like Favored of Iroas. This was actually one of the best creatures in my deck. This was actually my way of driving home damage, believe it or not. Something like this doesn't look very good by today's standards, especially when you compare it to something like Screaming Nemesis as far as driving home damage goes. But you could actually get this guy up pretty big, because he'd get like a +1/+1 from Pios, then you'd Sentinel's Eyes it, so all of a sudden it would be like a 4/4 swinging on in. As far as actually clearing the way, you had things like Banishing Light, which would also trigger this, while removing something that was blocking the way. You had Alseed, which is protection from the color of your choice. You do have to sacrifice it, but you could lay this guy, which will trigger, because he is a trigger constellation, because he is an enchantment creature. Sacrifice it, your guy will get in. That was actually pretty crazy. You had cards like Starlight Mantle here, one of the better cards in the deck, believe it or not, because you could flash out that constellation, helping you win on offense or defense, as well as obviously protecting your more important guys. Now, cards like All That Glitters are probably still good by today's standard, but yeah, this was obviously a huge, huge buff once you sort of build up your deck and whatnot. And again, like stuff like this was your creature driving home damage. You had things like this, not very good, but it is an enchantment creature, and everything just felt a little bit more honest. You could also draw 3 cards for 7. It's crazy expensive, especially as you look at some cards that are drawing 3. They're, you have Atraxas. I know that's an unfair comparison, but just something that I'll keep in mind. Giant Killer helped clear the way for when I couldn't swing in. You could also just tap creatures once you've removed their bigger thing. This was a great enabler, even though it wasn't an enchantment. So I just want to sort of talk about the probably like the better cards at that time period. You had things like Dream Trawler. This is probably my favorite card of all time for the artwork, the mana cost, the name, a 3/5 flying lifelink. It wasn't like you're gonna win the game right away, but if you built your deck the right way, obviously you could draw a ton of cards. You could buff this guy up a lot, and the fact that you could discard like your extra lands and whatnot to protect it was pretty cool. But then again, you couldn't swing, so this felt like this was a very fair and honest card in my opinion, even though it is very good. And I just want to talk about things like this. This, to me, my friend and I, when I was living with my old roommates, we loved this card. We thought it was cracked open. Now, you have things like Breach the Multiverse. You have Atali, thinking of 7 mana stuff. You have like Virtue of Persistence, getting back Valgavas and Atraxas. Atraxas also 7 mana. Like, harder to cast, but this does create an 8/8, then it taps down their stuff, and you gain control of something. This was like the most busted card if you had an Azorius control package to support it. We thought this was crazy. So I just want to sort of, again, talk about power creep, and I don't want to be long-winded. Things like Thassa, this was crazy, right? So this is really, really good because, like, often you pair this with Enter the Battlefield guys, right? And you draw, like, 1 card a turn. But now, again, you have 3 mana draw engines that also have 6/6 demons attached to them, that once you lay a few demons, again, we've already looked at Ankylosas, there's tons more, this is even better of a win con than just drawing a few extra cards with this by the time you actually take advantage of it. Thassa is a very cool card, though. Love it. Things like Kasmina, to me, were so good. I love this card. It sort of protects your guys. Now, a lot of creatures have Ward naturally. You have better draw engines. 4 mana might be a little priced out. But I think that it does have creature generation to protect itself while card filtering, which could be good for graveyard decks by today's standards. But again, power creep, just want to sort of get your mind thinking of options that you personally find frustrating. Things like Elspeth Sun's Nemesis. This was really, really good. I think it still is, actually. Buffing up, again, this boy. This guy, I love this guy. No one really played this guy. I hit Mythic with this deck very confidently. I have a screenshot. Many of you that have been long watching the channel, I did hit 250 Mythic. I don't think it was necessarily with this deck. It was like right after. I think during when Ikoria came out with like Luris and stuff, I actually just hit it with like the Mutate package in general with the Shark that returns a creature to their hand. You also had that horse guy that what the heck did you do? You pumped out a bunch of copies of itself or tokens. You would mutate onto like a Scoot Swarm, that kind of deck, because you would create copies of the mutated creature with the Scoot Swarm ability because it keeps the creature the abilities. Anyway, very cool stuff. Now this, creature generation, but it is a -2. You have creature planeswalkers with like plus abilities now. You have that new 5 mana Elspeth that is just better than this in every way because that has a win con with its 0, giving all your creatures flying and a counter, and it has a -3 removal, which is better than Game 5 life in most decks. And you passively doubling your token generation. And again, these are all minus abilities, but you can bring this back, which is kind of cool with the escape thing, which I liked. But just power creep in general. Archon of Sun's Grace, something like this, right? We have some creature generation things along these lines where you like draw 2 cards. You pump out like fairies, the Thopter card from Aether Drift. You have the discard card also from Aether Drift. You have the draw 2 Homunculus guy that makes copies of itself. Like that, in some ways, those cards can be better in a way. But I just want to say that this is 4 mana. And this wasn't even really played that much. So yeah, the lifelink on this is huge, and the flying 3/4 is good. But just another card I wanted to point out. Things like this were great. Nadir Kraken, draw a card. If you pay 1, you can start getting bigger while creating little chunk blockers, little token guys. So you're going wide and tall at the same time. Very cool card. But again, something like this, I think that just like by today's standards, and these are like the better cards that I could have found, I think. Anyway, Brazen Borrower. We know that this was like a $30 card, $50 card maybe at some point. Maybe like the Shouldered back then. This was like the Shouldered back then. Believe it or not, I actually traded in real life for this card. And yeah, just tempo as well as being a 3-power flyer. But now there's so many like incidental 1/1 guys, and something like this really couldn't even swing in, and it's actually not that crazy, I don't think, by today's standards. But this was insane. Things like Heliod, they had to have answers for this. Very good card, but not like warping, right? Not an Unholy Annex for 3 mana, also not a Screaming Nemesis, I don't think. So cool cards there. And that's pretty much everything. But before you head out, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to my little ramble. Let me know what you think could improve standard. I think ban Beanstalk and ban Monstrous Rage. I do. I think that these cards are ridiculous. There's plenty of other pump spells that could replace this that would make the deck a little bit more manageable. The trample on this is kind of insane. And the fact that it's like a permanent buff and it triggers all these things like Heartfire Hero. What other cards, like, other than Unholy Annex and whatnot, are super game warping? You have the Pixie deck with the Hopeless Nightmare sort of combo. We've seen Dimir do pretty good. Wizards of the Coast came out and said that standard is flourishing, right? Sort of what inspired me to make this. Is it really flourishing when it's the first time really in my whole Magic career that I don't even want to be playing? Because it just feels like so samey. You have people spamming the Atraxa of Valgavoth Reanimation. You have the poison counter people. If you're one of those people, more power to you. Actually, fuck you. There's something wrong with you, dude. That is like not even Magic. That is so boring. And they're just playing. They're not even really playing creatures. They're just playing the counters that add poison counters and the draw cards that find more counters and the sacrifice while adding a counter. They're just playing spells. It's just a deck of 60 spells. So just once they cast 10 of them, you're dead. They're not even really playing the 1/2 guy that doubles up the poison counters. I forgot its name right now, but they're not even playing that anymore. It's just as streamlined as possible. Just remove a threat, remove a threat, draw more cards, counter a spell, counter a spell, counter a spell. It's just so stupid. Like, I just want people to remember that Magic should always feel like you should always feel like you have the power to be creative and think outside the box. And as of right now, I don't feel that necessarily. I've struggled. I haven't really had the money or the time. I'm saving the what is it, 2 rares and the 5,000 tokens or whatever that I have for Tarkir Dragonstorm, which looks amazing. But again, it looks amazing in almost, well, it's not, I don't think, going to shake up these decks that I've discussed right now. But just the stronger that these cards get, there's going to be a breaking point, right? There's going to be a breaking point. And I hope Wizards of the Coast is obviously keeping that in mind. Because I don't want it to turn into like Modern, and there's no shade towards Modern or the level of like streamlined EDH decks and stuff. I don't think that we're approaching that quite yet, but I just think that like this is an omen in a way, kind of ironic because we have those omen cards in Tarkir, but it's just the first time where I'm like, yeah, dude, if I'm playing black, I'd be playing this card. I'd be playing Shouldered, right? I didn't even talk about Shouldered, which is like a $80 card or something insane. If I'm playing mono red, yeah, Screaming Nemesis is finding its way in, unless I'm streamlining the mouse thing. And if I'm streamlining the mouse thing, you're playing Kalos Blood Mage, you're sacrificing a huge Heartfire, you're getting hit for the Heartfire trigger and the Kalos Blood Mage, all to the face. It's just so brain dead. That's what it is. It's just brain dead. It's not fun for the person receiving it for sure, and also the person playing it. Because I want to support red. I want to support black decks. I want to support even Up to Beanstalk in a way. It's just Up to Beanstalk, I think the entering and replacing itself is too strong. That needs to be removed from the card or something. Or, I don't know. I think Up to Beanstalk gives me the most problems. I think this is, like, the Zur deck with Leyline Binding and these Overlords is so good. It's so good. It's like the best deck in my personal experience playing this game in Standard. But sometimes I try to log on to this game recently, and you guys have noticed that my videos have very slowed down. But I am playing a little bit more. I've made some really good elf decks. In fact, I have done like a few different recordings, and then I end up feeling like the deck's good and it's fun, but like, is it what the hardcore sweaty players really want to see? And you know, I used to be a hardcore sweaty player. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're one of those, I love you. I love all people watching this and all people in general. So I think that every player in every color should have the support and those type of architects available to them, but they need to be careful, Wizards of the Coast, with going too far. And I hope Tarkir gives a breath of fresh air to, because Aether Drift didn't really shake things up too much. Yeah, there's some Aether Drift decks, like there's the Is It artifacts and whatnot now, because we did get some good support from Aether Drift, and there's even just the Azorius Simulacrum Synthesizer, by the way, I didn't talk about. That deck's a little ridiculous. Synthesizer's a pretty friggin' good card, dude. When you get multiple of them, it's yeah, and I guess like maybe I'm not building my deck the meta way at the moment, and I guess that's kind of on me. You got to do tons more meta gaming these days. But I just think that like it's nuts that I used to hit Mythic with things like Starlight Mantle and Iros here. Pios Wayfarer was a premier one drop in my deck. You know, you Starlight Mantle something that felt great, even for 2 mana, and you're not really getting much above just protecting your guy and triggering Constellation. Even All That Glitters was like just so. This was such a good card. But now we have things like Sheltered by Ghosts, right? And I just think Sheltered by Ghosts is probably better, being that it does give the ward too, so it's harder to deal with the creature rather than just laying this and then instant gets removed. But this can obviously represent more damage. But you also get the lifelink with Sheltered by Ghosts, of course, and also the removal part of Sheltered by Ghosts, which I didn't even mention because it's like there's so many good aspects of that card. Again, there's ways to play around all these things I talked about today, but just let me know what your opinion is of the meta compared to like 5 years ago or something back in the Theros, Eldraine, Ikoria period. After that, before that, let me know a story of when before I started playing Magic. If you're an older player, that'd be cool. Let me know something like I remember when Goblin Chain Whirler was like really good, I believe. I guess, and also the rotation. That's the other thing too. Last note before you head out. Also, if you made it this far, thank you so much. Don't forget to like the video, sub for more if you're interested. But yeah, when I first was starting to play, Goblin Chain Whirler was considered like the best card, and it's like I look at that card and I'm just like, is that even good compared to like friggin' Screaming Nemesis over here? So yeah, there's still combo decks. There's like the Azorius Omniscience combo deck and whatnot. There's again, I mentioned the Dimir. There's even Dimir mill decks making top cuts and winning official and unofficial tournaments. There's Gruul aggro still. The demons from Golgari to Dimir have sort of evolved a lot. There's still things to appreciate about the current meta, I think. I think that it's like the beginning of the end if they print more up the Beanstalks. Anyway, love you guys. Hopefully I'll see you around again. Have a great rest of your day. Take care. I love ya. Stay solid. Yeah.